Hello, Bulls fans. This is Matt Gritzmacher. I'm joined by John McWhinney. It is August. We're back going on. This is not our weekly Olympic Rundown podcast that happens on Sunday nights during the athletics year. That will get started on August 21st, which is the first weekend that women's soccer is in play. They'll start the year off on the 19th and the 21st. It is the same team, same look, same type of topics as the Olympic Rundown, but we will be doing tonight and on a few more shows preview material for all of UB's Olympic sports that we talk about during the rundown on Sunday nights, both for the fall and for the two winter sports that kind of get an earlier start in swimming and wrestling. So we originally had this planned out in a day-by-day written post series that was supposed to start on July 11th. And if you're an avid reader of the site, you know that we've done since July 11th, exactly one post of those, which is a great post to write. I really enjoyed it. But we need to catch up and we don't want to write as much. So we're going to put together at least 3, maybe as many as 6 of these short podcasts, just in the same vein as the Olympic rundowns in advance of them. And we'll still have our regular, the week before women's soccer, the week of August 15th, we'll still have our regular season preview posts that we've been doing for the last few years for each team. And this is just a chance to talk about preview material in a different way. So today on the docket, we'll be talking for men's soccer. Absolutely the number one men's soccer story this year is senior Russell Cicerone. I could say more, but we'll talk about it when we get to him. From volleyball, we want to talk about expectations for this year. For the first time in 3 years, we've got the same coach as the year prior, which is great. Looking forward to that. Not necessarily a clean off season, but there's lots going on in volleyball. We'll talk about expectations there. Wrestling, as I mentioned, does start. It's not a fall sport, but it starts before the December dead time when only basketball and wrestling are going on. So we're going to talk about them in this preview podcast series. John's going to talk about some seniors who are back, who we didn't really expect to be back. At this time last year, we thought they only had 1 year left, and we get them again. We're going to talk about women's tennis and how they really are bringing back a loaded roster and might be entering a golden era, dating back to probably the best we've seen since current assistant coach Miranda Stan was on the MAC championship team in 2008. We want to talk about upperclassmen in women's soccer's attack. On the attack side of women's soccer, in consecutive years, they've lost leading scorers, Katie Roberts and Cassidy Kidd. We'll see what we can get from, now senior Selena Carrero, talk about transfer Carissa Macatrona, and maybe some other names who we figured to play pretty prominently in the women's soccer attack this fall. And then we'll talk about men's cross country in as much as we can. We'll just see, how they're doing, what we think of the names, and try to offer some predictions for that. And that's what we'll do this week. We might be doing these more than once a week to catch up on the preview stuff. But for this episode and a future episode, we'll have slightly different smattering of sports and certainly some new topics. John, the summer's over. It's August, and I should let you speak before we jump right into it.
Yeah, it's August. It's hard to believe I've already been graduated we're going on almost 3 months. And I think this is the first podcast we've done together since I walked the stage. And Now I feel really old. I turned 22 on Saturday. I'm constantly tired. Now I know how my parents felt.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you've still got time for podcasts.
I have time for podcasts. I have even more time to attend. My goal this year, for everyone watching, and I'm hoping people will hold me to this, barring that I'm not out of town for work, I plan to attend every single home contest that UB is putting on this year. So that's a fairly lofty goal that I have, but I want to make it happen.
Yeah, it's a lofty goal, but I think what a heinous duct tape commercial. Sorry. It's a lofty goal, but that's how much we care about UB. If I lived in Buffalo, I'd be doing that. Going to Penn State for a weekend to see women's soccer. I'll be driving down to Virginia a couple weeks later to see men's soccer. Can't really afford to go to Charlottesville to see volleyball the weekend in between, but I'd love to. John and I are both going to be at wrestling in Lock Haven on December 30th. uh, we're psyched. Like, this is why we're doing these. This is why we do it every week during the year. July sucks. There are no sports in July other than pro baseball um, for college again, because I think that's where all the fun is. And John, I'm not going to lose John for a month and a half at a time anymore because of engineering academic projects, I should say. And I'm going to have a lot of reinforcements in our Olympic coverage because he'll be in attendance. So it's looking to be a pretty big year for Bull Run. We're excited.
Yeah.
With that, men's soccer, absolutely, the top story for men's soccer this year, the number one thing that anyone has to talk about is senior Russell Cicerone. Johnny's the reigning MAC Player of the Year, the first from UB to do it since Steve Butcher. And looking at the UB record books, he's going to pretty much finish behind no one except Steve Butcher in all the record books. And Butcher played in a much higher scoring era. You could start anywhere with Cicerone. His summer exploits, his stats from last year, his spot in the record book. He's going to play pro. What he could do this year. You could start wherever you want. So I'm going to give you that opportunity.
Yeah, I recall last year when it was announced that he was the MAC Player of the Year that there was backlash from certain groups of people who I will not name, but if you follow men's soccer at all, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. I think the doubts that were cast were completely squashed this summer watching Cicerone play for the Michigan Bucks. He was one of the top scorers nationally. He led the team to their championship game, which is a national championship game it's a 5-letter acronym for the league, and it's right at the tip of my tongue. I've lost you, Matt. Oh, and I don't know if Matt can hear me or not. Oh.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Oh, hey, there we go.
Okay, it's something with my headphones. That stinks. Okay.
Just some technical difficulties.
Yeah, let me crank my volume up. The League of the Michigan Bucks are in. It's called the PDL. It's a Professional Development League. It essentially exists as a fourth-tier league in the U.S. pyramid of soccer. It's well regarded as the highest amateur league in the country. It's predominantly made up of college-age players. And the Michigan Bucks are absolutely a powerhouse in this league, and both historically and this year, they boast not only Cicerone, but Akron's Adam Najem, who's well regarded as one of the best players in the country, justifiably so. It's odd that Cicerone has a longer climb to get that status than Najem. But they also have Western Michigan keeper Drew Shepard, who's one of the best goaltenders in the country, and who I would love sometime to write a longer post on last year's MAC semifinal when Cicerone beat Drew Shepard in double overtime to send UB to the final, and talk about that game and how UB was able to solve Shepard, or really lull Shepard into how they were able to beat him. But they're a loaded team. They have the three best players in the MAC in Najem, Cicerone, and Shepard. And Cicerone's been the leader of them all year. He leads the team with 12 goals. He's been on absolute fire lately. They have one game left in the year, and it is not just the national championship, John, but the PDL also has a number of teams from Canada, and so they call it a continental championship or a North American championship or something like that, which is great. I'll take it. That's what he's been doing this summer. This comes after a 12-goal season last year for UB, in which he's moved himself up in the UB record books to within 20 goals of Steve Butcher for most all time. He probably won't make that, but he'll certainly score 6 to pass Mark Brown and become the second leading scorer all time. He's only 6 assists away from the all-time UB record, and he had 8 last year. So if Scott Doney continues to be a finisher, if other players continue to be a finisher like Cramarosa, we'll talk more about them at another time, he could become UB's all-time assist leader. And he's very unlikely to catch Butcher in career points, but he's almost certain to, again, pass Brown for second all time. So he's coming off a year where he's already been one of the better players UB's had ever, and he had one of the best single seasons that UB's ever seen. He's still got one more year to play. He's the reigning MAC champion, MAC Player of the Year. We don't really see those outside of men's basketball that often. We swept the awards in women's soccer a few years ago. We do all right in men's tennis with it. Khalil Mack was Defensive Player of the Year once in football. But it's a big deal considering where UB is as a department where they're trying to get as an athletic department to have someone earn that award and earn it as a junior and have a chance to repeat and really cement himself as the best player in the conference. He's already there.
And doing it in a conference that features arguably one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, the MAC is a tough conference to play in. It's a tough conference to succeed in because Akron is a national power, and Akron would be a power in any conference. And they happen to be a power in the MAC, which has only 6 teams. And so you're kind of fighting for second with other good teams like Western Michigan. Bowling Green kind of was good at the beginning of the year last year. West Virginia was good 2 years ago. It's a tough conference to succeed in. And Cicerone is the kind of dynamic presence that's going to play a huge role. He's absolutely the story of the season. I think there's lots of other names that UB soccer can't succeed without. But all attention is going to be on Russell Cicerone this year. Last thing we want to say for that, John, is MLS Super Draft is early January. I think there's no doubt he gets drafted. I think there's a real good shot he gets drafted in the first round.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And me being a gridiron football draft Nick, I guess I'll have to try my hand at association football and try doing a mock draft for that.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting to see if I could actually do that or.
I gotta be honest, I don't think you can. I can't see it happening. But like I said, it's very odd to me that Najem is considered one of the best 11 players in college soccer, and Cicerone isn't. They're playing on the same squad this summer, and Najem is instrumental in Michigan Bucks' success, but Cicerone is the one who scored 12 goals. And we can say that one's a forward and one's a midfielder. We'll see how they're used. But we need to consider Russell Cicerone this year in league with Megan Burns and maybe no one else as the most dominant athlete at UB. Would you agree with that, John?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think he'll go down as one of the best in UB history, even across all sports.
Mm-hmm.
He'll definitely be in the conversation. Obviously, Khalil Mack is at the top of the list right now, but I think Cicerone deserves to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
When he leaves here, he's going to be the only 4-time first-team All-MAC player. I'm almost certain he'll be first-team All-MAC again this season.
Yeah.
He could potentially be the first back-to-back or 2-time winner of MAC Player of the Year.
Brittany Curris might have that from women's swimming.
I meant for men's soccer.
Oh, you mean for soccer specifically?
For soccer. I'm sure there have been probably other people that have been first-team All-MAC all 4 years in other sports. But I know for soccer, he was the first to be 3-time, or maybe Butcher was 3-time, and he'll be the first to be 4-time.
We'll have our stuff together once we really get going with with the actual season. But remember the name. If you don't know it already, that's ridiculous. But remember Russell Cicerone. We're going to be talking about him a lot this year. He belongs in the conversation with Khalil Mack and John Jones, as one of the defining names of this current era. Maybe 5 years down the line, we'll try and figure out where the eras break themselves up in. But he's one of, if not the most dominant athlete that UB has this year. Moving on to a different sport, different little chance to preview. we've got 2 viewers now. You missed our intro, but we're turning to this video style for previewing because we're behind and we don't want to do a lot of writing between now and the beginning of the year when women's soccer is in action on August 19th. Volleyball, John. Not a super impressive run the last couple of years, but considering where UB volleyball has been historically, 3 consecutive years tied for 8th in the conference, 2 consecutive years making the MAC tournament, and 3 consecutive years with I think they had a 500 record one of those years, but 3 consecutive years with a non-losing record is a big deal for the MAC, for UB. I think some of those are the first, actually most of that's the first since they joined the MAC in 1998, 1999. And for the first time in a while, we've got the same coach from one year to the next. We went from Todd Kress to Reed Sunahara. He left for a year, and then we ended up with Blair Brown-Lipsitz. And now we have Blair again. Mm-hmm. And so I have a lot of enthusiasm for continuity. I think it's good. I, was a child of the Lindy Ruff era Sabres where we had continuity and it worked out for a while. But it's hard for me to get too excited about a clear step upwards in the MAC this year, in part because Coach Lipsitz did lose some big contributors to the offseason. Nikki Bozanowski is gone. She saw her role depleted a bit over the course of the year, but Nikki Bozanowski is gone. Setter Megan Lynn is gone. And defensive specialist Tessa Oyama is gone. That's in addition to graduating keystones, Akila Lane, Megan Lipsky, and Marissa Prinsbach. And so I think some of the rising sophomores, last year's freshmen, have experience under their belt. But I wrote a piece about this when I thought we were still going to be doing written pieces about how it's hard to feel like there's a huge step forward for this team. There's still a freshman and sophomore dominated team after being a freshman and sophomore dominated team last year. What are you thinking about volleyball?
For a team last year that lost 12 of their first 13 matches, they ended the season on what I would say would be a high note. Mm-hmm. What I'm hoping is usually year one, in any case, you see year one, it's new coach, new system. How different a system in volleyball is, I don't know. I won't claim to know. But new coach, new coaching philosophy, probably practices are probably different. So it's an adjustment period, and for year one, I kind of give a gimme to that.
Okay.
Year two, I'm not looking for them to come out and win every match. I just want to see improvement. I think something reasonable to expect is improvement from year one to year two. That may not reflect in the record, mm-hmm. but if the team is more competitive from match to match, keeping things closer, some of the matches early in the season last year were just complete blowouts. And
I do think she set up a ridiculous schedule last year.
Yeah, I mean the first match of the year was against Penn State.
Yeah.
I think Washington and Murray State were both in the NCAA tournament and nationally ranked very good teams.
15 or 2014, I should say.
But I'm looking for just improvement from year one to year two. Now we saw with John Stutzman's freshman and sophomore laden team last year that they were able to reach the 10 win plateau and do good things. I'm not expecting that level of success, but I think even though I wouldn't discount the team because they're full of freshmen and sophomores, I think Coach Lipsitz has people in place that fit what she wants to do, and they are on a clear upward trajectory. I don't think they could have gotten things could have gotten worse. They lost a lot, but I think in time the cream will rise to the crop, and whoever is going to replace, the Prince Box, the Lipskis, Tessa Oyama, and so on and so forth. They'll rise to the top. And don't forget, Amber Hatchett is coming back.
Well, I didn't forget. I was leaving that open for you to bring it up.
So there will be some senior leadership on the team. Hatchett has been around. She's a very good player from, I have to think back to 2 years ago now. But I think that the pieces are there. It's just a matter of getting more experience, and we'll really start to see that blossom this year. That's my hope for the season. I'm not expecting them to tear up the MAC and win it, but just seeing improvement is my reasonable expectation for the team.
All right, yeah, I think you're a little more optimistic. Deny that the return of Amber Hatchett is huge. A few years ago, Hatchett and Akila Lane were power in front of the net, and then it kind of worked out that Cassie Shadow was too good not to play, and Hatchett redshirted last year for injury reasons, and Shadow got a year with Lane, and now Shadow will get a year with Hatchett. Megan Warnett is a big experienced force up front as well. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. I am concerned, John, because the backline defense was undoubtedly a weakness of the team last year, and that's the place where a lot of the experience left. And we'll see what happens. Some of the folks that left were clearly not getting a ton of playing time from Coach Lipsitz. I'm looking at Nikki Bozanowski in particular, who started every game, played every set for Reed Sunahar as a freshman. Didn't play very much, or saw her role diminish under Brown Lipsitz. We'll see. I think there's a lot to be said for players who come in for their coach. We'll see. I think the absolute biggest thing is who replaces Lipsky. I was worried about Lipsky last year because as a junior, she was very inconsistent. And she came out and by the middle of the season strung together 8 or 9 straight matches with 18 plus kills. It was, she really became a force. And I think that UB's returning outside hitters, and none of them bring what Lipsky brought, even in a negative look last year. I think Felicia Watkins is the most accomplished from last year. I think based on high school pedigree that Lauren Slavosky from Pennsylvania, she looks like a real powerful shot and outside hitter. But we don't know very much about the others, and I think that some of the best recruits, by X's and O's are kind of on the back line. So maybe we'll see Scout McLaren play quite a bit and shore up that back line. Maybe we'll see Hannah Watson play quite a bit and shore up that back line. We'll see. I think for the third straight year, I'll say that if UB can pull out a winning record and make it in the MAC tournament, even sneaking in at 8th on the tiebreaker, I consider that another successful year. I just can't get over the fact that it's a year after a freshman and sophomore heavy team, we still have a freshman and sophomore heavy team. I'd like to see more consistency than last year now that we are in year 2 of a coach. So we'll have more to say about that, of course, but that's where John and I are thinking for volleyball expectations this year. I'm sure when Paige gets around to watching this, he'll have some comments for us in the comments. Moving on, wrestling is not a fall sport, but they get started in the late fall, and we won't have a chance to do a preview like this again, so they're included in our rotation. I'm just going to turn it over to John entirely. We finished wrestling on a high note. We had three grapplers at the national championships, had one of the upsets of the national championships came from UB, had another wrestler who absolutely deserved to be in the national championships and got robbed, which is crap. And we really finished on a high note. We're excited about Stutzman's team gaining experience and moving up. And it turns out that some folks that we thought were gone, through different mechanisms will be back and will really shore up UB's heavier weights. So, John, you take it away.
Yeah, so on senior day last year, Tyler Rill and Muhammad McBride both, quote-unquote, graduated and were planning on leaving the program. Rill decided to come back for a 5th year. He'll be up at 174 this season, And Muhammad was granted an extra year of eligibility. Thank you, NCAA, for finally doing something right. He was granted an extra year of eligibility. And I had a quick chat with Coach Stutzman, and he'll be down at 165. He competed at that weight at the Canada Cup up in Canada, and he did very well there. He ended up fourth. The Canada Cup is a freestyle event, and he narrowly lost to a former Olympic bronze medalist by a score of 7-6. And when I chatted with Coach Stutzman, Muhammad had the guy on the ropes. Muhammad had the guy beat. And Muhammad had a former Olympic medalist beat. So that gives me a lot of hope for this upcoming season, especially with how Muhammad progressed last season at 174. Now he'll be down at a more natural weight for him. And if you've ever seen the guy in person or watched a match, you know that he's built. You know, if you just look at him. Now he'll be at a lower weight where he can really use that to his advantage. And Tyler Rill up at 74. He'll have a couple guys to contend with. Probably Ryan Cromer, Austin Weigel. Cromer last season was 17-8 in mostly open tournaments. Weigel was 14-10. Weigel did finish fourth in the A bracket at the New York State Championships. Incoming freshman Logan Moriarty from Missouri will likely redshirt. I can't really see him jumping Weigel or Cromer or even McBride Rill for the starting spot. Then there were rumblings that a fifth-year senior would be transferring from Hofstra at 174, so that's another guy that will compete with Rill for playing time there. But just having Rill and McBride back, that's a huge boost to the team, and not only in terms of senior leadership, but both guys kind of left last season on more sour notes than some of the others, Rill being injured, and McBride coming up just short in the MAC championships and being he was injured towards the end of the season as well. But now everyone's healthy and going into the season healthy. It'll be great going forward.
Yeah, great. I apologize. We've got a football commit, so I'm trying to pull together a post on that, as that's what I do. So I am looking forward to McBride in particular, John, because he just looked so strong last year. I think 2 years ago, McBride finally got a chance to wrestle. The NCAA finally approved him to wear a cage over his beard. And McBride's young, remember, too. He started college 2 years early. I thought 2 years ago he was kind of raw, and he was certainly raw on the emotional side and the discipline side of things. There was a match where he cost us a team point for his reactions, and I'm all right with that, but I don't forget it either. Last year, he looked like an entirely different wrestler, both mentally, and he just looked strong as all get out. And I'm particularly excited to see him back. And I'm excited to see Tyler Rill back as well, because when he's healthy, he can wrestle with anyone. Just gotta stay healthy. He's had some really bad injuries in his career. I'm glad to see him have a year back, if for no other reason than hopefully he stays healthy. He gets to wrestle a year with his brother. Logan Rill is a freshman this year for UB. It'll be nice to see. I think McBride at 165 was going to be a huge boost to UB's lineup. I really do. I think that's going to be a huge asset that, as you said on Senior Day last year, we didn't know they were coming back.
Yeah, and Rill, I didn't even mention this, Rill placed top 8 at the Midlands Championships where UB will be returning. It's one of the top in-season tournaments. So like you said, he can wrestle with the best of them in the country as long as he's healthy, and that's going to be the real challenge for him. And which both you and I know that health issues are probably the most unpredictable. Um, Especially with someone that's had a history of injuries, it's even more scary. Uh, every time they step out there, that you think, really want to think that an injury might happen, but if they land the wrong way or you see something get twisted, then you think the worst. But it'll be good to have them back. We'll have a lot of senior leadership up at the upper weights, someplace where UB has struggled, especially through years 1 and 2 of the Stutzman era, where it seemed once we got past Max Soria, whoever was at 33 at 41, then things just kind of fell off a cliff. Now we've got guys in place up there where you have good bookends and you got real solid guys in the middle, and that's a very key piece in the formula to winning a lot of dual meets. And having those two guys back is going to be a real big help.
Yeah, I think I have nothing more to say on wrestling, which is good because we need to keep moving here. One team that, as we talk about through eras and moving through recruiting cycles and seeing young players turn into more experienced student athletes and bring success, or different stages of a coach's lifetime. One team that I'm really very enthusiastic about this year, and was very pleasantly surprised with in 2015-16, is women's tennis, John. And women's tennis very nearly pulled off a run to the MAC championship this past year. Really opened up their spring season with a couple great wins, fought hard in all their MAC matches except for one, and they got revenge for that in the MAC tournament. They upset number 1 seed Ball State in the regular season, and then had Ball State, I might not say on the ropes, but they really played Ball State tough and had a chance to beat them in the MAC semis, where they would have had a chance in all the momentum in the MAC final. Women's tennis, if you'll remember, was the first UB team to win a MAC championship back in spring of 2008, just a few months before football and a few months before match driving did. And so women's tennis, I really think, John, that women's tennis is entering last year as a spring was really, and the fall last year, is really a sign of them taking a huge step forward. I think they're entering a massive golden era. This past year, they only had one senior, and Diana Gassieva was a great player. We really saw in the spring that she only played in doubles. So they only had one senior, and she paired up with Margarita Kotak usually, and only played on one doubles team. And the young talent that they're returning, the successive hits in recruiting they've had, just really impresses me. Margarita Kotak is now a senior, but after her, Tanya Stoyanovska and Tanya Stoyanovska was a sophomore last year, so she's a junior now. And then we had a ridiculous freshman class last year, and not just Chantal Martinez Blanco out of Puerto Rico, but also Sanjana Sudhir from India and Mercedes Losada Rubio from Spain. 3-person freshman class that put together a ridiculous winning percent. UB's absolutely loaded with sophomores and juniors, and then as Kotak and Laura Holterbosch as senior leaders, who can really put it together. I think Christine Haraldson also had a winning total in the high teens.
Mm-hmm.
I need to give you something to say, but I just think that women's tennis had a big fall last year, propelled them into an even bigger spring. Ideally, you want movement forward, and I just think it's happening. And I think this year there's a real chance. I wouldn't say the favorites. I think there's real chance to win a MAC championship this year. I think there's real chance to lay a groundwork for 3 years of being an elite team in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with that. The numbers from last year don't lie. I got a chance to watch the team. I forget if it was actually streamed or if I went over to the tennis courts and watched in person. Either way, I was very impressed with just how seamless it seemed. Like the freshmen that you mentioned were able to come in and then just start playing at such a high level. And you mentioned that Diana Agassieva is gone now. The person that is going to be taking her place, that's an incoming freshman, is Anna Sevchenko from Cyprus. And the interesting thing about her, she plays both singles and doubles. She's a lefty, which
Oh,
UB doesn't have a lefty on their roster. Um, so it may seem kind of trivial to bring this up, but if you've ever played baseball and you've pitched, there's a difference between, if you're a right-handed pitcher pitching to someone that's right-handed and left-handed. I would think that kind of the same thing goes in tennis when you're playing against someone who's left-handed versus someone who's right-handed. And having Shevchenko there who's left-handed, that can help prepare the team better for any left-handed opponents that they're going to come up against. It's just another little piece of that puzzle that hopefully comes together this year to win a MAC championship. I think it's only July of 2016. We won't know till April, May of 2017, so we still have almost 10 months until the MAC championships roll around again. But I would definitely expect UB to be in contention, not only for a MAC the team title, but I think for the regular season championship too. With the performance that they put on beginning of the season last year, with how they played in the fall, they're a team that if they get hot and they stay hot, it'll be really hard for them to get beat. So I think if we pay attention to how they play in the fall, that could give us a good indication as to where the team is coming off of the success of last season, if they're going to keep that momentum going into next spring. I think the big thing is, we can say it for any sport, but the big thing will be consistency from match to match and lineup to lineup. Getting someone consistent at the 1, 2, and 3 spots. We'll have our most dominant players there, but then having people on the tail end of the singles lineup consistently doing well, which is what we saw a couple years ago when men's tennis won the MAC championship, that you saw consistent production from each spot in the lineup.
Absolutely. I mean, points at 5 and 6 singles mean exactly the same as points at 2 and 3 singles. And I think part of the reason I'm so hyped about women's tennis, John, is that that's already happening. Let me pull up their stats from last year. I haven't slowed my computer down too much here. That type of depth is already there. St. John's here had like 3 losses on the season at like 4 or 5 singles. Yeah, so last year on the year, UB was 13-9 at 3 singles, 15-7 at 4, and 15-5 at 5 singles. They had 4 different players with 20 wins in singles, and then Mercedes Losada Rubio had 17. And then in doubles, they were only 10-7 in first doubles, but 12-5 at second and 10-5 at third. That's how you win, I think St. John's here was 11-1 at fifth singles, but you could see her as high as second or third this year, depending on how things shake out. And you could see anyone, I think, go anywhere from a 3-spot range in the lineup, and I think they'd be successful. I think in Stoyanovska and in what's her name, Martinez Blanco, you've got 2 who can compete at number 1 singles for any team in the MAC. I think beyond those 2, Kotak and Satir and Losada Rubio and but Laura Holterbosch could all be competitive at second singles as they need to be. You add all that together, and now you're down to fifth singles, and you're just going to run into matchup problems if you're facing Buffalo at fourth and fifth. And I think that's how UB is going to win matches this year. I'm just excited. I'm excited to see it. I feel like I don't have anything more to say. But, it's just good.
Yeah, things are looking up. I think we should probably move on to women's soccer now. And I'll let you, what was that?
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I think I'll let you can start.
Okay. I'm still trying to get this football piece up. Um, if you follow us at all, you know that John and I have a special place in our heart for women's soccer. The team really, when Bull Run expanded its Olympic coverage in 2014, that was the year that women's soccer went bananas, and we've really latched onto them. And this year, I think I have a lot of things to talk about. I have people who left who shouldn't have left. We have freshmen who are coming in who are exciting. We have returners who are coming who are exciting. We've got, year three since Burke took over, and we've got a foundation now. We don't just have Burke pulling together a talented team and seeing a bunch of them graduate 2 years in a row. One of the things that I think will be absolutely key for women's soccer this season is where are the points going to come from? Where is the offensive creativity going to come from? I think there are a lot of younger players who can bring that, but I find myself looking to the upperclassmen, John, to do so. The last 2 years, UB's leading scorers have been upperclassmen. Katie Roberts, of course, scored double-digit goals in the championship season. Cassidy Kidd went on a tear after finally starting to find the back of the net. Last year, it was named first team All-MAC. This year, I think, the two people who are undoubtedly going to be a big force in things are senior Selena Carrero and Carissa Catrona. I didn't write Julia Benatti here because she generally plays a little bit wider, but she takes as many shots as anyone else on the team. So I'd love to see, the goals keep coming from her. I think she actually tied Cassidy Kidd last year with 6 goals on the year. I really should know that off the top of my head.
I have it up. Yeah, she had 6 goals. Benatti had 6 goals and 3 assists. Kidd had 6 goals and 6 assists.
Yeah, okay. That sounds right. It is right. You've got it up. So I want to talk about UB's attack. And I think that this is a year in general where UB's upperclassmen are really, really going to have to step up. I think that for as much as we kind of thought about the defense last year, this past season was even more, the offseason was even more tumultuous for the defense. I think the midfield and the offense is a little bit less turnover heavy, but once again, they've graduated their top scorer in Cassidy Kidd. Mm-hmm. And so, Selena Carrero, Carissa Catrona, Julia Benatti, those are 3 names all coming off of, if you look at each of their last 2 seasons, very different trajectories in those times. I don't know if this is a good spot to hand it over to you or not, John.
Kind of put me on the spot there while I was looking.
Yeah, I know.
I missed like the last 2 sentences that you said.
That's fine. Then it wasn't a good spot. So basically, Julia Benatti's last 2 seasons came on, started every game as a freshman in the midfield, really played great. I really think the defining factor of UB's championship year was a midfield that made things very easy for the defense and for Laura Dougal. That midfield could, once they got away from the other team a lot. And Benatti was a big force in the build-up play and in keeping possession. Last year, she became more of an attacking force, took, I think, as many shots as anyone on the team, tied for the team leading goals, is really a danger off the wing. They used her on some set pieces if it was coming from the right direction. She's a force. She's on the ball constantly. I think she's best suited on the wing. I don't think she's suited for a move up to forward like Kidd fell into. But she's someone who has seen her role grow and succeed, and we're really looking forward to see what she can do. Selena Carrero, 2 years ago, was a creative force playing opposite, kind of in a different foil to Katie Roberts. Well, Katie Roberts would go and post up in the middle and make things happen. Carrero was more movement-based and was more creatively based. Last year, she was a little unlucky, and I wouldn't say she played worse, but she hit a lot of posts, had a lot of chances that just kind of didn't materialize. And so I think she's looking for a bounce-back year in her senior year, and she can absolutely do it. I think on ball, I said it last year, and I don't see any reasons why it's not still true. There's no one in the conference that can guard her one-on-one when she's got the ball on her feet. So I'm looking forward to see what she can do in a bounce-back way. Carissa Catrona, going back 2 years. 2 years ago, she wasn't even on the roster. She sat out her true freshman season at I think Colgate.
Colgate.
Yeah, due to a knee injury. Last year, she made things happen, was maybe not the offensive dynamic force that I was really hoping for, given she scored 151 goals in her high school career. But made things happen, really integrated into things, dropped down into the midfield when Cassidy Kidd moved up to the forward, and that seemed to work. I remember doing my anatomy of each goal posts, and she really has an offensive eye. When she has the ball in the midfield, she looks to move it up, and that really worked for UB. But here and there you saw mentions that maybe she wasn't 100% back from the knee, or she hadn't developed that, the psychological comfort that comes with, okay, my knee is okay and I can go full speed on it. And so I don't think that what we saw last year was anywhere close to her ceiling. So whereas I think Benatti will continue to grow into a role, Carrero's looking for a bounce back, and Catrona hasn't yet really been unleashed. I think it's three different trajectories for the three of them, but I think they're the three names to talk about when we think about goal scoring, where the goals are going to come from UB this year. And now I hope you're less on the spot.
Yes, I'm now less on the spot.
Right.
The thing that excites me most about both Carrero and Catrona, assuming both of them are up at forward, the two of them are lightning quick.
Mm-hmm.
And Catrona can move, when she has the ball on her feet, she's a bullet heading up and down the pitch. And that, to me, it seems like it would present a real matchup nightmare for opposing defenses, where Catrona is not, she's on the smaller side. She's on the smaller side, so she can't really be as physical as, say, a Kristen Markowitz would be, or even a Cassidy Kidd would be, because both are a little bit bigger than Catrona is. But Catrona has an advantage where she's so fast that no one can catch her. And what I'm hoping to see is, as you alluded to earlier with Selena Carrero, I'd like to see her in one-on-one opportunities, say against a defender or whomever's on the other half of the field, because I think her natural ability and her natural speed, that can generate a lot of goal-scoring chances. She took a lot of shots last year. She was second on the team in shots, but she only managed 3 goals. I think she had 47 behind Cassidy Kidd's 51 shots.
Am I way off? Because I feel like I remember Benatti having like 60 shots. I'm gonna.
I got the stats. Benatti had
39. Okay, I guess All right, so everything I said about Benatti being up there in shots is still true, but not to such an egregious degree as I thought. Anyway, that doesn't undermine your Catrona point at all.
Where was I? I lost my train of thought.
Catrona didn't score as many goals as you'd expect given how many shots she had. And you're looking for more one-on-one opportunities for her.
Yes. I think if you get both her and Carrero in one-on-one, I think there's a lot of potential there for there to be a real dynamic between the two, where Catrona is using her speed to dart up the field, so the defense is more focusing on her, leaving Carrero open to be creative with her positioning on the field and what she does once Catrona gets her the ball. So I think that could be a really interesting dynamic if those two are at forward. What concerns me a little bit, which we might not really talk about today, there's I'll forget. we'll probably talk about on another show. But okay, we'll just keep it to what's at hand here. Um, I think Rebecca Bramble is probably a fourth name we could throw in
Certainly.
um, as someone who could really step up and score. Last season as a freshman, I think she played in well,
Most games.
in 20 games, I think at least,
He was a pretty frequent sub up top.
and I think now there's less people in front of her. Now she'll have more of an opportunity uh, to say spell either Catrona or Carrera when either of them need a rest. I think she may be the dark horse to really shine this season on
I
the
think so.
offensive end.
Yeah, I like what I see from Bramble a lot. The biggest thing I like from Bramble is that she played the sub role really well, and that she came on with high energy. She pressured the ball real high up the field. I can only remember once or twice where she generated a turnover out of it, but she keeps things going. Um, I'll be really interested to see what she does with more minutes. Whether that changes her approach, if she can go with the same speed for that time. I was really excited about what I saw from Bramble last year. Um, she may be a starter alongside Carrero up top. Maybe it's Carrero and Bramble, and then Petrona, Benatti, and someone else on the wing. Um, I could see. I think Benatti's on the wing and Carrero's a forward, and otherwise everyone else can kind of be somewhere in between those two roles. One other name that I want to say really quickly before we move on to our last sport is just Nicole Garrett's. I think Nicole Garrett's made things happen last year, and there's something to be said to that. You watch her play, and she's raw. Her first touch was often kind of heavy. Um, she sometimes didn't have the finesse that maybe we see from Carrero and Catrona, but she made things happen. She drew penalties, she drew fouls. She never stopped moving. I don't think she had. I don't think she was the best on the team at making really well-timed and real strong tactical runs. But the ones that she made, there was at least once a game, and she was playing a subs role. She was maybe in for 15 minutes a game, where I was like, wow, that was a great move by Garrett, either with the ball on her feet or not with the ball on her feet. And I just think she's someone who makes things happen. And so that's another name to remember. I think less so than Bramble, but I'm excited to see that too. So we'll see. We'll see how that all shakes out. I think it's going to be really tough. The only two positions that I'm really, really confident in, three positions that I'm really confident in this year from Coach Burke are Laura Dougal starting at goalie, Andrea Kniper starting at defensive mid, just set her to destroy and let her run around and, end people. And then Julia Benatti on the wing. And other than that, I could see everything else kind of moving around a bit. So we'll see. But I think if everything goes right for UB, they could have a very dynamic, creative, fun to watch attack. Especially given their success on set pieces in the last few years. If they can maintain their success on set pieces and then also score a lot of goals in creative moves from the run of play, it could be very exciting. I want to talk pieces at a later date. Last one that we want to talk about tonight is men's cross country. Cross country and track are a little tougher to talk about, and cross country is definitely tougher than that. They kind of just happen. Last summer, when I was doing individual student athlete by student athlete previews, I hashed out 3 names for cross country, wrote 3 posts, and one of the people that I wrote about didn't end up on the team. Whether he decided not to run anymore or whatever happened, and so that was a bit embarrassing on my part. Cross country is a team, John, that kind of graduates 1 or 2 pretty strong guys a year, but always seems to have, at least in the last few years, a decent group coming back, and it's a matter of if enough people step up or not. It's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and last year at the MAC Championships, it was Cameron Bruce was phenomenal as he always was. He finished I want to say he was top 15 in the race, and I'm not sure if he is has one of those funky eligibility things where he can still run in cross country but not run in track, or
Yeah.
I don't know if he is
They're
coming
different
back.
sports, so the eligibility is different.
So I'm
I
not
think he
sure if he's
graduated. I think he was a senior last year,
okay.
at least for cross country.
Um, so and then at the MAC championship, someone who really kind of surprised and really stepped up at the championship race was Adam Hunt, and I think he's one of
You love Adam Hunt. You
I,
like you think Adam Hunt is the future. I
um
think good for you. You can back it up. I just knew that was the name that you were coming with.
well, of course it was. Um, but you mentioned people who stepped up, and he was someone who stepped up.
Mm-hmm.
And last year he was a true freshman. And I think with last year's incoming freshman class, I think we were so focused on Jack Jibb coming in, with how awesome he was in high school, that we kind of, uh, I wouldn't say we didn't focus on the others as much, but they kind of flew under the radar. And Hunt really, he really performed very well towards the end. Um, and
And I will say that Hunt comes from Fayetteville Manlius, which, aside from being a powerhouse in New York, is a powerhouse nationally. So he's got the pedigree. Um, Someone else that I want to talk about, maybe not from the MAC championships, but from the spring track season, is John McCarthy. He's a junior this year. I think he could be a real big name. And I think there are some names that, like, fans of UB cross country, which might be just you and me, John. You and me and like Coach Witz and Coach Mitchell, but names that we've heard before that I think could play a big role, are very talented, and could really, if they improve, could be great. And if they don't improve, will still be very core of a very solid team. Andrew Burge, Brian Crimmins, Barrett Kemp, Tyler Sheving, Justin Van Epps. Like, those guys are the core of something,
mhm.
And Hunts can be real solid. Craig Kaiser found kind of a role late in the season last year. Jack Jibb has the pedigree. He can do it. I thought John McCarthy and Tom Meehan both had pretty big track seasons. I think it could be really tough to figure out who the 7 are. I think we could see as many as, like, in the first 4 competitions or so, we might see like some weeks where the top 7 is different by 4 or 5 guys from meet to meet. Whereas, at least on the men's and women's side last year, I generally figured these 6 are going to be in the top 7, and like some races you can only enter 7, some races you enter everybody, and it's your top 7 that count. You could generally pick. It was more a question of like who's going to step up and join, UB's top tier, and who's going to be in UB's second tier, and who is going to have a bad race and fall out of the top 5 and not count towards the points. This year, I think it's really hard to project who that top 7 is going to be, and I think it's going to be hard for it to settle out over the course of the season anyway. But that also means that I feel pretty confident about 6 to 9 guys who could all step up and have a good race. One week it might be Hunt steps up and is UB's 3rd runner. Another week maybe, Kemp, Burge, Van Epps, and Crimmins all run within 2 seconds of each other, and UB wins, places high in a race because they ran as a pack real well. One thing, John, that I'm not so certain or eager about is really a step forward relative to the MAC and the MAC championships. And I will admit that that's totally a gut feeling, but I'm not sure who this year is going to be UB's like top guy who really nails down a low score at the top of the championships and helps UB get something up there. Men finished in 6th place last year. They've generally been on an upward trend. I'm not so sure that they have multiple guys who can finish in the top 25. And I think they need that.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they get it, they've got 4 or 5 guys who can do it. Because like I said, that pack is there. that group is there if they all run well together. But if you look at no, I didn't. If you look at the MAC champs last year, Cameron Boost ran great. He ran 25 minutes. But then it was a 45-second drop off until Adam Hunt, and there was Hunt, and then Hunt and Shevin came in together, and Van Epps a little bit behind that. And that was another big break until Jib, Austin Cohn, a less of a big break. Palafox came in. See that another senior, Derek Palafox, who ran there. It just 2 years ago and in the first half of last year, you saw a real tight pack. And then towards the end of the season, whether because of injuries or whatever, it got a little more unpredictable, and the pack really wasn't there at the MAC championships. And that's the type of thing that keeps you from low scores, that moves you up the team rankings.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Talking about pack racing, Eastern Michigan, who ran, pun intended, ran away with the title.
Really frickin' Fink.
They had five guys in the top 10.
Yep. That's just a great goal, because if you do it, you've won.
Yeah.
In any cross country meet of any size, if you get 5 in the top 10, you've won.
I'm not saying UB is. Eventually, yeah, that's the goal, is to have that type of dominating win. Will that happen this year? Probably not. But like you were saying, it'd be nicer to see guys coming in more of a pack rather than being so spread out throughout the field.
Yeah. And they've done it. Like I said, I shouldn't say last year, 2014, that really happened. And in the first half of the season last year, that happened at times. And I think the core of the team is there for it to happen again. Like I said, there's 6 guys there that I feel real confident in, that if they all run a good race at the same time, UB could really put together strong performances. But I also can't help but remember the MAC championships last year, where, no offense at all to Hunt, Palafox, and Austin Coneys, but they all finished higher in kind of the UB pecking order at the MAC championships than I really expected. And that's because they ran great races. But I'd like to, I don't right now have the feeling that, like, all 4 of these guys are going to step up at once and UB's going to have boom, 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 even if it's not in the top 15, even if it's around 20, because it just hasn't happened lately. And that also comes without a guy like Cameron Bruce or like Zach Ahart, who can lock down a top 10, finish in any of these races. And absolutely, this is all gut feeling. We have very little to go on in cross country. And so I super enthusiastic to see me proved wrong. We'll see what happens. I think it's a really interesting year for men's cross country, because we do have this core of guys who I feel good about, and it's bigger than you can fit into a 7-person roster for a race. But I don't have anyone in particular that I'm confident will come in and week out, like Cameron Bruce did, short of injuries, and really pop down a solid time and lead the pack every time. That's what I'm looking for, and maybe it materializes, and maybe by week 2, maybe at week 2, Barrett Kemp is just crushing every race he runs and finishing in the top 15 of everything, and we're excited. But right now, based on what we saw last year and the year before, I feel like it's a weird kind of transition time for men's cross country. And that's all guesswork and gut feeling. I know that sometimes I say things that sound like I'm an expert, and all I want to do is talk sports. So I just get to talk sports.
Well, that's what we're here to do.
That's what we're here to do.
That's what we're here to do. It's only the first week in August. There's still plenty of kilometers to be run. Plenty of matches to be played. Oh, we're just getting started.
We're just getting started. Well, I think for just getting started, it's time to wrap it up. Thanks to our viewers. hopefully watch on tape delay for watching. I think this year I'm going to try and rip the audio off of all of our video casts and package them as a podcast digestible thing so that people can listen to them in different ways. I mean, I have known for a long time that our podcasts, in as much as they have a video component, are just faces talking at you anyway. But I'm going to try and do more work with audio only media this year, so that someone could, just subscribe to a SoundCloud account and listen to these as they drive to work or something like that. I think that will be useful. So however you digest what we put out here, thank you for that. Like I said, John and I are doing these because we fell behind on writing all these different snippets that we want to talk about, different ways to look at previewing UB's fall and some of the winter sports teams. So that means we're going to have more of these. We haven't hashed out when the next one will be, but stay tuned. I think we need to do 2 a week somehow if we want to do everything we want to do. And if we stay tuned. And then the actual shows, Sunday nights, recap and looking ahead as we do every week, the Olympic rundown, those will start Sunday, August 21st. Stay tuned for that. On the rest of the site, the football stuff is ramping up. As you heard me say during the show, we just got another football recruit. You'll want to go watch his highlight reel film. It's always good to get linebackers out of Florida. Might make his way to the Oakland Raiders someday. With that, thanks for joining us. It's not quite here yet, the UB Athletics 2016-2017 season, but it's close enough that there's nothing else to talk about. We don't have to rely on minor league baseball and Canadian football exclusively anymore. So for John McWhinney, I'm Matt Gritzmacher. We're a part of ubbullrun.com. This has been just chats about the Olympic sports before we really, really get going. Have a great week.